Today on Locked On Rockies, we continue to learn more about the club from people that cover the team, and we learn how to cover the team with a happy tone while also being realistic about an incredibly frustrating franchise.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 22nd day of March. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. Talk Rockies baseball on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. Fire off your Rockies hot takes and let me know what's on your mind. Today, we are continuing to talk to Rockies media members, and we are joined by Suzie Hunter of the DNVR Rockies podcast, doing the live shows, doing it all. Suzie, thank you so much for the time and for joining us today.
Paul, I'm super excited to be on. Obviously, a huge fan of Locked On Rockies, the Locked On product. I'm excited to talk some Rockies baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we want to bring on people. I would argue that we are two of the more exciting Rockies personalities out there. There's good ones, but don't get me wrong. We bring the energy there, and we're going to dive into that type of stuff and more. But let's talk immediate Rockies news that just happened. And as of recording here, the Rockies trade Joe Rock here, and I'm going to get the full details up, but I kind of wanted to vent a little bit on this trade. I know it's probably not that big of a deal. Joe Rock, there was still a lot to like about Joe Rock, but man, I was really hoping to see him. He went to my college, and left-handed pitching, that seems kind of like a foolish thing to trade away, especially when he's been pretty solid. There's been no real big warning sign concerns for also somebody that, for it's to the Rays, by the way, for shortstop outfield prospect Greg Jones. And I don't feel like the Rockies need another utility prospect. That's kind of where my head's at for this, Suzie. What's your reaction to this news?
Yeah, Paul, I'm exactly there with you. This one definitely left me wondering, okay, but why? I definitely have some questions, and I'm not down at spring training for my third trip until Monday. So I hope I get some answers soon. But yeah, it seems so strange because we know that the Rockies need pitching so badly. We simply can't get enough of it. And Joe Rock is a prospect who was drafted in 2021 and has moved through the system so quickly. So for me, I was expecting some really exciting things from him. And meanwhile, on the other hand, I'm sure Greg Jones is a great player, but I think he was a player that the Rays expected more from. And again, you said it. We don't need another outfielder / infielder. Most of the team is already that. It's so weird. So if there's more reasoning behind it that we're not seeing, I would love to know.
But I saw an interesting tweet from someone that responded to, like Rockies club information. I can't remember. And it kind of does make you think, if Tampa Bay is calling about a pitcher, shouldn't you maybe consider like, hey, that guy's got something? I mean, Tampa Bay knows what they're looking for when it comes to pitching. And I think another big thing too, left-handed, like something the Rockies literally didn't have for chunks of the season last year and before. And this is, I think, this moves like this is what frustrates people, because it just seems to go counteracted, because now it's another, and some of the instant reaction I'm seeing too is he's gonna be on the opening day roster potentially, like he's gonna be competing for a spot, and it's like, well, what about Montero and Tolia and Bouchard and Goodman and all of these guys that were already competing for the for these very few spots that really remain on the Rockies roster, instead of a guy that potentially we could have seen him throw in the majors in August or September.
Yeah, and you never know how the season's going to go, knock on wood, because injuries happen and recovery at altitude also is just so much harder. But yeah, on the opening day, I doubt this guy makes the opening day roster because, again, we already have so many options. And I think Patrick Saunders had tweeted out that he had asked Buddy about this new guy, Greg Jones. And he was like, we'll see, we'll look at him, but we really don't have that much time right now to look at him. So I'm kind of taking that as I really think he's going to start at triple A. And that's where the Rays had already optioned him to triple A Durham. So I think he's going to be in Albuquerque for most of the year. I am so confused on this one though.
Yeah, but because like you said, the health is going to be big. Maybe it's a hope. Maybe the recovery of Herman and Senza is a little bit better, so you feel like you might get that depth of that rotation that you have. But a head scratcher for sure. But let's move on from that, because really a move that we're going to kind of see the real implications of it a couple of years down the road, as they're players that still are going to be minor league level. I know that you're heading to spring. You're going to catch some more, but what are the things that you're taking from this spring that you're buying into, that you're obviously acknowledging it's spring training, grain of salt, but what are the things you're seeing from the Rockies that you think are going to carry over, or you hope or / expect to carry over?
You know, the biggest thing that I'm thinking is that we have so many young guys, along with, a handful of veterans, and all of these young players, the last year was kind of their first time playing at that level together. And I think now that they have a little more experience and they're all kind of gelling together in spring training right now, I think this team is going to click a little bit better. I think the offense is going to be a little more pop-in. Those are some things that I definitely see happening. And Kyle Freeland had said this a couple of days ago, earlier this week, that these young players remind him so much of his, early years with the Rockies back in 2017, 2018. He was like, listen, this crew right now reminds me of them. And those were really great years for the Rockies. So I do think, and I know Chris Bryant said this, I think the Rockies might surprise people a little bit, but we also have to be realistic, because this division that we're in is crazy.
Yeah, and only got better to Snell joining the Giants having a really good offseason, the Padres, losing some, but then you look at the lineup and you remind yourselves that it has Machado and Bogarts and Tatis Jr. on it still. And the Diamondbacks are, a team that we know can surprise. I think with the Diamondbacks, they got to prove it again a little bit, because if you keep in mind the whole context of last season, there were really low points, but it's motivation for the Rockies, because it just shows you just got to get there, get to the playoffs, and then go from there. I'm curious here. One of the big storylines from the spring has been Elehuris Montero, and how is he going to fit into this roster? And I really feel like he is someone we got to keep talking about going into the year, as this has to be a really big year for him. What have you seen from him this spring that you've liked, that you've been concerned about? And do you think that this is going to be the year that we can really buy into Monty?
Yeah, I honestly, he needs to just mash all season for us to be like, okay, we're good with the Nolan trade, remember? But here's the thing. Where does he fit in all of this? We have too many of those first basemen / outfielders. And honestly, I feel like Montero is a guy that we could trade and get something back. Oh, what if we got some more pitching? Wouldn't that be so crazy? So sometimes I think he could just be such a valuable piece in terms of trade. But if he could really hit this year, that would be amazing. I want 1 million home runs from Elehuris Montero. And looking at the spring, he's been streaky. He had a nice, not so nice log, 5-game streak where he had no hits.
Right.
And then he came back so strong. So he's been streaky this spring. I hope that doesn't carry over into the season.
Yeah, and a lot of strikeouts in that low streak as well, in that hitless streak, and it's basically was a snapshot of what we know the Montero experience to be so far. It's going to be a confusing one, especially if Charlie Blackmon and Chris Bryant play up to what they are capable of. I want to dive into more impressions, more things that'll carry over, and things from the spring. But I also want to talk about covering the team and doing it with a positive attitude while keeping things realistic, because you got to have fun, but you can't ignore the wonderful front office of the Colorado Rockies. We dive into all of that and more coming up here in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $145 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, unload your receipt, and get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register at Ibotta. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. We are also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's got you covered here for all the action going on in this big basketball month, as well as opening day next week. Lots of sports action, and you can get in on all the action at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. We're back here on Locked On Rockies. Suzie Hunter of the DNVR Rockies podcast joining us now. And we got our little spring training preview there. A lot of great coverage. I want to talk about your approach to covering the team. One, you got deep Philly roots, and you love your Philly still. I was seeing it today. You were reminiscing. I think it was about an old stadium or something. I'll always remember that Citizens Bank Park was referred to as Coors Field that one time. Was it the Denver Post?
Classic Denver Post sports front page.
But you are not one you're not hesitant to grill the Rockies, but you also have fun while doing it. And I want to talk about why that's important and why you can do that. And that's kind of my thing. What makes it fun to be a Rockies fan? What makes it fun to cover the Rockies?
You know what? I will say, I think the thing I have most fun with, the thing I have the most fun with, is every game at Coors Field has the potential to be the weirdest baseball game you have ever seen. So that, for me, I think is just so much fun. And also, keep in mind, like, we have so many great personalities on this 40-man roster in this major league clubhouse. Like, everyone's the personality hire. It's a lot of fun. So it's so easy to talk to these guys. They're all approachable. They're all very friendly. And you don't get that with a lot of major league teams. So we're very lucky here, the group of us who cover the Rockies.
And we kind of mentioned this a little bit too, when talking about it. It feels like really the vibes are different with this team. You mentioned the Kyle Freeland quote about it feeling it. How important is that? I mean, it really, if you've been checked out on the Rockies, this is not even, I mean, the team has looked very different now, really kind of 3 springs in a row, but no more different, or mostly different this year, because last year there was kind of a hodgepodge of veterans and jerks, and Profar was on the team at the end of spring and but then wasn't there really at the same time. How important or how much of a difference do you think that makes for this team?
I think it makes a huge difference too, because I mean, again, this is a team. They have to be all functioning together at their peak performance to really get the best out of it. So I think that is so important. And again, a lot of the guys who are still here from last year, they're vibing, they're gelling, and I think it's going to make a really big difference. And the other thing, like, yes, the team has looked different kind of year after year after year, sometimes a little too different because we've seen some amazing talent from the 2017, 2018, 2019 years even leave Colorado. And that stinks, but I really do think this there is still a lot for fans to get into. And there are still guys that fans can start to love.
Yeah, and it starts probably with the young three core. I think most fans got to know Tovar, Jones, and Doyle at the through Tovar the whole season. Jones and Doyle a good chunk of it. Out of the starting roster, because we kind of got our opening day roster figured out. Who do you think has the most upside, and who are you the most worried about when it comes to the Rockies starting nine?
Ooh, who am I? Oh, good question. I will tell you who I'm excited about because I always like to start with the positive because
Got to.
that's just like where I'm at in life. But I will say I'm so excited right now for Brenton Doyle, who left that rookie season with a gold glove in that outfield, the toughest outfield there is. He was running around that outfield so much he lost 20 pounds. He was so skinny at the end of that season. He's literally like
That's
giving
true.
it
He lost
all to
20
this
pounds.
team. Yes.
Wow.
He ran so much. And like, I've said this, like, these guys are well fed. Like, it's not like he's eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like, they are getting feasts. And
Mhm.
so that is just how much running is involved out there. Obviously, it was worth it. He walks away with the gold glove, but the one piece that was missing was the hitting. But his average it has been so good for almost all of spring. He's been making contact. He's been getting on base. I think Brenton Doyle could really, I think he could be a big positive for this team if he can keep this up through the season.
Yeah, he not only that, because he's got a little bit of sneaky pop too, 10 home runs last year. And then, the biggest thing, one of the best things I think to hear from spring training, I've heard two things that I've heard from the coaching staff that I've absolutely loved. This team wants to steal more bases, and they were embarrassed by how much striking out that they did last year. And if they can improve in those two areas, that right there is going to be the difference maker in close ball games. I think another thing people need to realize is there was that weird stretch in the second half of the season where the Rockies were beating some of the best teams in baseball until the eighth inning. And it seemed like for 3 weeks, every time in the eighth inning, it would implode, but you saw the potential there. And so if they can strike out less, steal more bases, and play this new version of baseball, which they so desperately can do, because if you're running people out of Coors Field, that's going to be massive. And I think Brenton Doyle is going to lead the way there. I'm really excited about Ezequiel Tovar too. I think it's really, I think the one thing, if you're going to look for stuff that you for sure have to give the Rockies credit, man, they have picked shortstops. They have nailed the shortstop position. They haven't missed now in 3 straight shortstops. And Ezequiel Tovar, he might not hit as well as Trevor Story, but I think that the overall product could be the best shortstop version. I mean, healthy Tulo, prime Tulo is a really steep thing. I don't want to go that far, but I think Tovar has potential to really carve himself out an important and significant part on the team this year.
Oh my gosh. And also, Tovar played pretty much every single game the entire season, and the only games he missed was for the birth of his child. So This guy, knock on wood, has been able to stay healthy in a really tough ballpark, and he's been playing every day. He's going to be incredible. And he was able to do that his first real full season. I just am so excited that we get to watch his career as it blossoms. And yeah, Rockies, at least they can pick some shortstops. Do you remember that Brendan Rodgers came up as a shortstop?
Oh, that's right. I feel like that is true. Yeah, but then Trevor Story was, I think no one really expected Trevor Story to start hitting like 1 million home runs, and they're like, all right, well, hold on here. We got this guy. And can you speak a little bit about, I've heard this obviously, and you, like you said, you being there actually covering the team. Can you speak to that maturity? That seems to be the buzzword that surrounds Tovar, is that he's really mature for his age. He was, I mean, you saw it on the field. Can you speak to that and what that means for a player at his age?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's so young. He turned 22 this most recent season. So he is young, but yeah, so much maturity. And I feel like you kind of have to. You're leaving your country at such a young age, but I just feel like he has this mindset of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And you can see how comfortable he is. It's hard to believe that he's 22 years old with the way he carries himself.
Yeah, and I think that he's got future leadership qualities there, as it's someone that if real potential to be face of the franchise type of a guy if he sticks with the Rockies and continues to take steps in the right direction. Another guy, Nolan Jones has kind of gotten a lot of flowers this year. I'm not really worried about Nolan. I know he struck out 18 times this spring, but I got to ride and feel confident that he's going to be able to make adjustments. But I want to talk a little bit about right field. Are you comfortable and confident in our guy Charlie Blackmon playing a lot of right field for the Rockies?
I am. I would never doubt Charlie Blackmon. He is still the hardest working dude on this team. He is in first. He is such an incredible leader, and every single one of these young guys just looks up to him so much too. But listen, I still have faith in Charlie Blackmon for now. I mean, he is getting older, but we have a lot of options for right field too.
Yeah, I have total faith in the offense. I think Charlie Blackmon is still effective. I believe he hit another home run today in spring training here.
He did.
Yeah, which is, great. That and he getting things going at the right time of spring for him. And I'm fully confident in his abilities as an offensive player, and no doubts about his role in that clubhouse. He is easily, I think bringing him back for this year is actually one thing that is really important, because he can really help that core in their second full season at the big leagues. He's a guy that I think he can tell the story of success, of being what it takes to be that young team that breaks through for the Rockies to get to the playoffs. I think his role is incredibly valuable. I just don't love his defensive abilities in right field, but I know right field's not as important, but I do hesitate with the defense.
Yeah, you know what? I guess we'll have to see how it all plays out. But again, I'm not too worried because we can DH him. We can put almost everyone else in right field, basically. But, if we DH Charlie Blackmon, where's Montero going to play if Chris Bryant's at first base? It's a puzzle that I feel like we've got some wrong pieces.
Yeah, I really do think that is it. It does feel that way, or like a piece from another puzzle that looks really, really like close, like something that you're like kind of can jam it and it fits, but it's not flush. So and I think part of that could Chris Bryant could represent that piece as well. I mean, this is a year that I think that Chris Bryant has to play 100 games this year, and production. Really, that's step one. And then production is step 1A, I guess. But realistically, I think Rockies fans just want to see him on the field this summer. What can you tell me about Chris Bryant going into his third season with the Rockies?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, Chris Bryant is just as frustrated as the rest of us. I know fans are like, well, he's making all this money and for what? No, he's so angry. He wants to be out there playing. We want that too. And oh my gosh, these past 2 seasons have been so disappointing. But here's the thing too. He seemed fine going into all of those other seasons. I'm a little traumatized. I don't know how this season is going to go. I don't know what's going to happen, but he says he's feeling good. So I'll believe him. But he was feeling good going into all those other seasons where he missed so much time. And that's not a knock on him. It's like I said, we're all so frustrated and we're all in this together, but that's not going to help anyone.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. We'll close out the show with pitching expectations and just anything else that we have time for. But God, of course, people want to talk pitching. That's always what people want to focus on with the Rockies. So, of course, we'll get your Rockies pitching expectations here, Suzie, and finish up the show by getting ready for opening day, which is, just around the corner, which is crazy. We're going to do that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with all things in the world of sports, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, and more. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should, and you can learn more at amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Final segment here with Suzie Hunter of the DNVR Rockies podcast. 3 days a week, right? Is it 3 days a week?
3 days a week, and we are live all 3 days.
Yes, absolutely. And if you haven't, I actually haven't been yet. I had spent very little time in Colorado. You got to make sure you're catching games there at the bar as well. Seems like one of the best spots to hang out in Denver there to watch, well, all of the sports. Because, what's cool about DNVR is they cover all of the Colorado sports teams, kind of like how Locked On covers all of the teams. But Suzie's here to talk Rockies, and people want to know about this pitching staff. I got to take a break from gushing. I have been doing a lot of Kyle Freeland gushing. I am a big Kyle Freeland fan. I'm really excited by the improved fastball velocity of Kyle Freeland from this spring. I think that's one of the main storylines that you can take from this and see that it translates over, because I believe if he's doing it now, he should be able to do it here with the season starting. But pitching staff, really shaky, adding 2 new arms, and still the 5th spot, and really the 4th spot, I guess they said, kind of up in the air still. Where are you at when it comes to the pitching staff? Where are you the most confident, and where, like, just like the starting 9, who are you the most confident in? Who are you the most worried about?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Where do we start? Side note though, are we not all K-free guys? We're all Kyle Freeland guys. All of us. I'm excited about also, he has a new changeup, by the way. Like, he's never had a changeup. That's
Adam Wainwright caught him, right? That's what they're saying.
Oh my gosh. And so I'm excited to see how this all plays out in the regular season. Outside of him, I am excited about Dakota Hudson. He's had some really good outings for the Rockies. And I mean, Cal Quantrill too, coming in to a brand new clubhouse, coming off the worst season of his career. He can only go up from there. Again, knock on wood. The piece that I am the most concerned about right now is Austin Gomber, because we've seen good things from Austin Gomber, of course, but we've seen a little more bad each coming season. And that split squad day where he was pitching against Seattle, where he got rocked, that was tough to watch. And I am worried that might carry over into the regular season. So right now this spring, he's got an ERA of 15.26. I don't like that.
No, and he's given up like 20 hits in something like 10 innings of work. Austin Gomber easily the most concerned, because again, as you highlighted before, another piece of a certain trade that hasn't necessarily panned out, and it kind of stings a little bit more. And I think last year, while I have been giving Austin Gomber props, he stepped up last year for the Rockies. The performance, I know, wasn't great, but he, in a situation where there was really no consistency there was a stretch where he was going out there and giving it his all, and really had kind of, I think, his Rockies moment finally. But again, I really am worried about that. And I'm still kind of intrigued with Ryan Feltner and some of these guys that have been injured and kind of freak stuff that were thrown into the fire a little bit early for the Rockies. How do you feel about any of the young arms? How do you feel about that 5th spot in the rotation? Are you intrigued by Feltner? Do you think that kind of might be a fluid spot throughout the year?
You know how I say, there's Kyle Freeland guys. I might be a Feltner fella.
Okay.
I have a lot of faith in Ryan Feltner. And of course, he came in last season where we had a big hole, and he was pretty damn good for just being so young too. And oh my gosh, that injury of his, just I can't even believe
Right.
that happened. More even, I can't believe he is back on the mound. I can't believe he was pitching again at the end of last season. It's literally a miracle. So if he can get through that, I think he can get through pitching at Coors Field for a whole season. I think he could be an incredible piece in this rotation.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see there. Just one last question here. The bullpen, it's going to be kind of interesting, but is Justin Lawrence going to take the step to cement himself as the closer here, or do you think the Rockies are going to kind of move it around? You know, Lawrence might go in the 8th, and Kinley closes. Bard, of course, what the Rockies are going to do when he gets back into the mix for things. How do you think the bullpen's going to shake out?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, first of all, we have to remember at the start of last season, the bullpen was phenomenal.
Right.
So good. And in terms of who's going to be the closer, I have a feeling that they're going to swap a lot between Kinley and Lawrence. Kinley's clearly had the better spring, the stronger spring, but I mean, Justin Lawrence I think he's an incredible pitcher. And as long as these guys aren't overused, they could really save us from some jams.
Yeah, and I have waxed poetically about Lawrence because give me a guy out of the bullpen with a crazy arm angle and release with a pitch that is ridiculous, doesn't make any sense. Got to lower some of those other issues, but that's the thing. I think, to sum it all up, there's plenty to be enthused about by the Rockies, but just take everything with that grain of salt because it's the Colorado Rockies and we know how things and injuries and a million things are going to happen, but there's plenty to look forward to for the season. And you can follow along with Suzie Hunter all season long with the DNVR Rockies podcast. Suzie, where can they go to stay up to date with all of your work and everything that you do?
All right. Well, you can follow me at the Suzie Hunter on all platforms, and you can keep up with all of the latest Rockies news and stuff that's going on at DNVR because we always have really fun events. We have takeovers where we take a party bus to the park, but DNVR_Rockies on Twitter is your place for that.
And it's good. It's a must follow if you ask me when it comes to the Rockies Twitter. But we are the Locked On Rockies podcast. I'm the Locked On Rockies podcast, I should say. I'm not officially bringing on Suzie here. Well, as much fun as that might be, but you can find your Locked On Rockies action there at Locked On Rockies on YouTube, Locked On Rockies on your favorite streaming services, folks. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.